Hey there, hiking family. So I've been wanting to put together a number of fitness and more on the rehab side of videos for those getting ready for the trail or just wanting to add something extra to their movement. Not just in the performance range, well again, mostly actually in the rehab prehab range, but on a fitness side, there's definitely a few things worth talking about. And so on the fitness side, a lot of what I specialize in, I suppose, is endurance training as well as some functional work, which for backpacking, both those work really well. But a lot of times I hesitate to put up videos because it's complex in a fashion, at least that a lot of what I'd like to talk about requires someone being skilled on a technique level, where I'm like, okay, I could put together a program and show you how we're going to work on really specific adaptations and how we're going to work on that across time, but so much of it is so technique based that I tend to hesitate talking about those. And if I sit there going, okay, well here's a deadlift or a squat or a really complex functional movement, you know, it's great going, here's the thing and here's how you'd use it, but without being able to help instruct someone on here's how we'd actually accomplish that technique wise, I really hesitate to talk about it, because I don't want people going and adding things without appropriate input and feedback. But there's one movement that's been part of my, for lack of a better way of putting it, leg days that I've really been enjoying and has a lot of very specific carryover for us backpackers. In a really direct way, if you're looking at, say, water crossings, like those of us in the PCT will be, this ends up being a very practical movement. But when we talk about leg lifting and leg exercises, most people are only doing exercise in what we call the sagittal plane, which means your limbs are only moving kind of in a forward and back direction. And in the real world, that's not very practical. Now, doing a squat is going to be helpful. It's going to help make your legs strong, but it's only really in one direction. And so it's kind of lacking, well, without getting too crazy technical, your body is used to not just deploying strength in only one direction, which will still give some carryover in other situations, but it doesn't have the stability outside of that range. The skills and then the muscles that are meant to hold joints in place while the big muscles move your body, you're only really working in those in certain ranges. And again, there will be carryover, but there's a loss. So between the skills, the strength and endurance in these other ranges, it's important to actually venture outside of those ranges that you'd see in lunge, a deadlift, a squat, or even some of the other stuff that I like enjoying, from pistol squats to really high step, stuff like that. So what I've been adding in is what I generally note as a Kaiser walk. And what that is that, well, we have one of the higher end Kaiser models here, so pneumatically generated resistance with a high amount of pressure and a waist belt that lets me kind of move in other directions. That's not going to necessarily be practical for most of you, just because my facility happens to have some fun toys that are stupid expensive and just aren't really readily available. But there are equivalents that you can use at any given gym. Really, the best way to go about this for most of you is going to include kind of an elastic band or a weight belt if you have one, something that is meant to bear weight, not just, oh, here's a rope, that'll do, but something that's actually designed to deal with this. For what I'm using it's for a piece of equipment most people wouldn't see. It's like a reverse kettlebell swing setup. It's weird, I won't go into it. But it means I just take a high weight belt, some weight bearing carabiners and stuff, and for the sake of the demonstration, I'm just going to actually put it right on a cable machine. And so, well, I'm going to get set up and then I'll actually show you what I'm talking about and dispense with the main part of the talking that, well, if you've seen any of my videos, they go on and on. I like details and thoroughness, so bear with me just a second and we'll show you what I'm actually talking about. So I'm going to show you my setup real quick and then what I'm actually talking about, which, simply put, really, I'll show you a bit closer, but I have essentially a weight belt that's meant for bearing weight attached through a carabiner to an adjustable cable on a cable machine. So fairly straightforward in that regard. I'm going to wrap it around my hips, or the bony part, not the leg, not up on the abdomen, but the hip, so I have a solid spot. And I'm simply going to have the weight pulling me that way. I'm going to walk away. But instead of just being able to do a forward and backwards like you might with a sled or something like that, I can go tall, I can go shallow, I can go diagonally, I can go side by side. And so for me at the moment, well, I could get a lot more minute. I'm going to walk away from it sideways, then 45 degrees, and then 45 degrees the other way, and then backwards and forwards, and basically the cardinal directions and in between. So 8 different directions is a set for me. And this is something that obviously, especially if you're using pneumatic or elastic power, it can really pull you back towards it. See, you got to start light, you got to start slow. It's slow. It's all about controlling that momentum really stably. There's a lot to be talked about on how you approach it with the feet, but really it's just to plant solid feet, get a little bit low, go slow, control that momentum, especially on your way back. Those last few feet, you're going to want to start going, okay, I'm close, and you start getting taller and just kind of letting yourself pull back towards it, and just don't do that. That's just going to happen, and it's against what we're looking to do anyway. So to keep it short and sweet at this point, after we've gone the long and not so sweet, so right up and against the hip. I'm going to start with just low, walking sideways. I'm going to go out of the frame a bit, and so as I start getting taller, you see I really get pulled back, and then I'm just going to control it nice and slow. Get to the end, diagonal. For those with a martial arts background, kind of something of a front stance or a warrior stance, but a little bit tighter for those who do yoga. And just nice and controlled back. Don't cross your ankles. Resist just speeding on your way back. And so later on, when you get more comfortable with it, weight forward, speeds up. On the way back, I still want it nice and controlled. But we're just going to get them. That's what not to do. So basically, instead of just showing you all of it, it's how we'd go through and get a really wide angle, or rather a wide range of angles to be able to work on our legs from. So again, I could be doing really, really shallow, almost a duck walk, to really tall and have to manage that momentum anyway. And it just adds a lot of stability, a lot of strength at these different angles that, at least in water crossing or up hills and wind and stuff like that, you're going to want that motor control, the strength and stability to do it. So I'll leave it there. So there's our cable walk. Again, this is something you should really be careful with, especially if your balance is poor. Start lighter than you think and go from there. It really adds a lot of depth to the strength and stability of the legs and the hips. And there's definitely a lot of other exercises I'm doing at the moment to get ready for the PCT, but this one is just something that has a lot of depth for everyone's performance, but especially for us as backpackers that have very dynamic terrain and water crossings, high winds, at times you don't expect it. It has a lot of benefits it's going to offer. So I'm going to be putting out more videos like this, probably again more on the rehab range, just because the fitness side, there's so much technique to talk about that it's harder to dispense that usefully. But if you had interest, let me know, and